Ethan in Southern California. You're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Ethan.
Hey, how's it going? So I have a few friends that I've grown up with, and they're on the left. And my question is, when having conversations and I use statistics that I hear from your show, they just say, that's not true. Where'd you find that? Where'd you hear that? If they're willing to have a conversation with me, where's the best place to get statistics on the spot, and where do you get your statistics?
So I generally get my statistics, frankly, from like mainstream media publications, from peer-reviewed studies, from the government itself. There's all sorts of sources where I get my statistics. Usually on the show, when I cite a statistic, I explain where it came from. So whenever I talk about the number of unarmed black men shot in America every year, I cite the Washington Post. There's a full-on Washington Post database, and you can go and you can check it. If you're talking about studies on disproportionate police shootings, for example, Roland Fryer has done good work on this. He's one of several studies on this particular issue. If you're talking about income inequality, there are a wide variety of sources ranging from Abigail and Stephen Thernstrom at the Brookings Institute to members of the Heritage Foundation to Coleman Hughes, who have done investigations into wealth and income inequality. I try to cite sources because I know that people want the sources. But if you ever are in search of a particular source I'm citing, feel free to email me. My email address for everyone is bshapiro@dailywire.com, and I'm more than happy to give you the sources on what I discuss. I try not to speak out of my tuchus, so to speak, and when I cite a stat, I typically use a source that is fairly well accepted.
Cool. So if you're having a conversation, it's probably best to come prepared with some good sources and statistics on conversations you think you might be having with that person.
Yeah, generally that's right. I mean, I will say that I think it's very often done in bad faith when people are like, so what's your source on that? And you've like, if it's a friend, typically if you say like, it's a source, I know it's real, I just can't remember it right now. For the sake of the conversation, they should assume that you're not lying. But I understand, like I do this all the time in conversations. I've been doing it since college, where I'll cite a stat and somebody will say, where is that from? And I try to keep in my head where all the stats are from. If not, then thank God you have a cell phone. You can pull it up, and generally that stuff is pretty easily available.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate that, and I enjoy watching your show. I watch pretty much 80% of your shows.
Well, that's pretty good. I appreciate it. Let's get that up to 100%, Ethan. Really appreciate the call. Fred in Detroit, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Fred.
Oh, yeah. First off, big fan. A little nervous. Thank you. I was wondering, I saw on dailywire.com you had a couple references or links talking about UFOs. I had seen one, and I know we're short on time. I could tell you about it if you'd like, but I was wondering what your take was. Do you think they're vehicles that were made by the Chinese or Russians, or do you think there's some, life out there?
Well, I mean, all UFOs are, right? I mean, it literally stands for unidentified flying objects. So I have no idea. I mean, it could theoretically be some sort of machinery that we are not tracking. It could be drones. It could be private aircraft. It could be a bunch of different things. I really don't have a clue. As far as the idea that it's aliens, okay. I am very skeptical of the idea that alien life forms have reached Earth. It feels to me like if they had, and they had the technology to reach Earth from presumably light years away, then they would also have made themselves quite known because of their superior technological abilities. It would take quite a while to get from any place that is inhabited to Earth. So I find it really hard to believe that aliens are sort of flying around but doing nothing, like just apparently doing nothing all day long across the world. So I'm happy to hear your UFO story, though, as long as it doesn't involve any sort of anal probe. So go for it, Fred. What happened to you?
Yeah. Thankfully, no. But it was 1998, southeast Michigan. There's a city called Grozil. And there's the Detroit River that runs right by on the east side. And the river runs between Grozil and Canada. So anyway, 1998, I had a girlfriend. She paged me. And we're going to meet on this little rocky beach at 10 o'clock at night, like play slap and tickle or whatever, So like I show up at 9:30. I'm there early. I get out. I sit on the hood of my car. I'm looking at the stars. And one star, I thought it was a star. It was just freakishly bright. And I don't know how many miles I can see from left to right peripheral vision. But this thing, I mean, I can't even describe how fast it was. From the left or the entire sky, it was just an instant. The only reason why I could see it was because of the bright orb. And it left like just some kind of trail. Anyway, it does a perfect 90-degree turn without hooking or slowing down. It was just, it's so hard to describe. But it was coming to frequent instant stops. I mean, it moving at full speed, instant stops. It danced around like that for a few more seconds until finally it stopped in front of me. And it's still probably several hundred yards out. And I can kind of make, in this ball of light, I can kind of make out like your typical kind of metallic dome-shaped, structure underneath, and it started to slowly ascend. And as it's getting higher and higher, it's getting faster and faster, and finally, it just, in a series of strange flashes of light, it just vanished. And it was almost like a movie. I could see like a strange kind of distortion around it, and didn't make a sound. And ever since then, it just bothered me. I've been a major Christian my whole life, so I've been trying to, make sense with it biblically. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Jesus, but I really have no clue.
I have no idea.
I have no idea, Fred. Yeah, I wish I had an answer for you on that one, but I have enjoyed this episode of George Noory Late Night Radio. So, thanks for the story, Fred, and hang in there. Maybe the aliens will come and take us with them. I mean, frankly, it seems like that may be the solution for the country at this point. It's just to get the hell off the planet. Michael in Indiana, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Michael.
Hey, love listening to your show. I believe that over the next few months, there could be a major shift in what I know as America today. Country that I love to grow up in. I'm currently raising a family, and I've really started to kick off my career. Now me and a lot of my family, and I believe many others, feel like they're being forced to stay silent during this increasing movement that we're seeing in some of the larger cities across the U.S. in fear of losing our jobs or careers. This pops up on social media quite frequently, examples of this. So I was curious, how do you suggest we start showing our support against this growing movement that many of us are seeing in the larger cities across the United States?
Well, it actually starts with people in power saying no. So if you're a powerful person, if you're a person who doesn't have to be canceled, then refusing to be canceled is the number one thing. If somebody comes to you and they say, we demand your apology for X, Y, or Z, you should just say no. Like Tucker Carlson, I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. Here, he is exactly right, and he's really good at this. People come for his head pretty routinely, and he'll just say no. Not happening. It's very important that people at the top of sort of the heap be able to say no, because what cancel culture really is about is intimidating everybody else. It's saying to Tucker, okay, or me, we're going to come after your advertisers, and if you refuse to acquiesce in this, if you don't cave to us in our opinions, then we're going to go after you and ruin you. And if you cave to us, then we're just going to go after people lower down who have a lot more to lose. So it's really important that people kind of top line defend against this. If you are, kind of low on the food chain at a particular company, it's very difficult because you really are taking your own career into your hands by saying things that are true. And this is why if cancel culture continues this way, what you're going to end up with is a series of companies that are for the woke and then a series of companies for everybody else. Because basically the woke culture is trying to make at least half the population unemployable just by dint of the viewpoint they hold about America right now. And it's really dangerous. I mean, I talked about this a little bit earlier on the show, is what Major League Sports is attempting to do right now, what professional sports is attempting to do by cramming down a particular message, is the idea that if you refuse to accept the message that America is systemically racist, you are yourself a racist and bad, and you can be canceled just on the basis of not agreeing that America is a horrible place. That's really dangerous stuff. Corporate America is doing this more and more. The only way to fight back against that eventually might be for people to stop patronizing these businesses, which I would not prefer, or for people to start alternative businesses, or for these corporations to learn that they really should not be involved in these sorts of issues because it has nothing to do with the business that they are in, Michael.
Okay.
I mean, I wish I had an answer better than that. I wish I had an answer that says, stand up and say what you believe, and there won't be consequences, but that obviously isn't true. I mean, I think there are people like me out there who will stand up and fight with you, that if you get fired for saying something true, that I'll find a way to support you. But I think that the basic notion that we can do that for, tens of millions of people who feel under threat, it's very difficult. Now, should there be flashpoints? Absolutely. Do you want to be one of those flashpoints? That is your choice, right? Now, I'm not going to recommend to anybody they put their career at risk because I'm not the one who has to put food on their kid's table, right? I think that if you want to stand up and fight, and then you want people like me to resonate to what you're saying, then I'm happy to do it. And I think it's really important that people, again, in positions of power with a loudspeaker do that. And we try to do that a lot over at Daily Wire. But I can't recommend that everybody take on that risk because that's a personal decision that everybody has to make individually.
Okay.
Well, Michael, appreciate the call. Hang in there, dude. Chris in the Bay Area, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. How's it going, Chris?
Hi, Ben. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty well. How's it going from the land of needles and open poop?
Well, I'm glad I haven't stepped in it yet. That's very, very heartening for me. I actually have a reading question for you. I know you read a lot of books, some of them at the same time. I'm trying to do that myself, and I'm wondering if you have any tips on how to get started in doing that.
So the best way that I've found to read is I have to kind of switch off, because if my attention span starts to wane, then I tend to read more slowly, and I will lose energy in one book, and then I'll switch to the other book. Very often happens. So I usually have one fun book and one serious book that I'm reading at the same time. So I'll read some fiction, and at the same time I'm reading fiction, I'm reading a biography of Stalin or something. And that's a nice way of sort of giving my brain a break while still bringing in a lot of information. It doesn't have to be, fiction. It can also be a sports book, or it can be something that you find a little bit lighter or more fun. That's how I take in information. As far as how to read faster, typically speaking, there are certain structures to nonfiction books in particular that you get to know. Introductions are important. Conclusions are important. First 3 paragraphs of a chapter are important. Last 3 chapters of a paragraph are important. Very often, you'll find, I won't say this about my own books because I think my books are kind of philosophy and content heavy, but there are a lot of books where they just sort of repeat the same point over and over and over, and then they just footnote it a lot. And unless you intend on memorizing some of those data points, which very often is useful, what you really want to know is where in the book that information is. You don't want to necessarily read through all that information right now. So the way I tend to treat some nonfiction books is as sort of reference manuals. So I know where in the book, for example, this person is going to talk about criminal statistics, and I footnote it. The way I like to read nonfiction books is I don't like writing in books because, I don't know, I have this bizarre, almost religious objection to defacing books, even though it really isn't doing it. I own it. And so what I found is really good is you buy those colored tabs, the sticky tabs, and I use that to highlight sections of the book because those are always removable later if anybody else wants to read the book and it doesn't obstruct their ability to read the book. So my books are covered in tabs. My copy of de Tocqueville's Democracy in America, I went through like 3 packages of tabs. But I think that's a good way to kind of footnote it and come back to it, which is really the best part of reading, is now you know where everything is. And that's the most important. When it comes to nonfiction, that's the most important.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You bet. Thanks, Chris.